So again, welcome everyone. It is the kickoff for the 2020 season. This is the final year of the Mainbird Atlas. We're super excited. We've got a lot to cover. We've got some really important priorities to go over tonight. To start off, I'll show you just kind of a quick agenda that we want to cover. I'll also mention some quick meeting etiquette, how we'll all use Zoom together. As I said, we'll keep people muted, at least for the beginning here. For the second hour, we can go into breakout rooms. There will be 3 different rooms. I'll talk about those in a minute. But that'll be a better time to do more of like a Q&A over certain things. Otherwise, we do have the chat, as some folks have already found. So do feel free to use the chat feature throughout. We've got a number of our staff. We'll do, I guess, a round of introductions in just a minute. And also some of our regional coordinators, some of our all-star volunteers, people who are well-versed with this project. So the point being, lots of people can help answer questions in the chat kind of throughout. So don't feel like you have to just wait until we get to those breakout sessions if you do have questions. Yeah, again, as just a really quick outline, we'll do intros in a second. I'll give us a real quick what and why in case there are any folks who are brand new to the Atlas, just to get us kind of oriented what we're doing here. A quick summary of our accomplishments so far. As I said, we've got 4 years behind us. It's actually really, it's fun to look at this now, thinking about like some of the first couple years. It was a little more intimidating to have these maps that really didn't show much, but now it's pretty impressive to look at what we've got. I'll hand it over to Glenn to talk about some of our goals for the final year. Then we'll give you guys some final announcements and reminders. We'll take a quick break. That should get us to about 7:30. Quick break as we get ourselves prepared. If folks need to use a bathroom, refill your teacup, whatever is needed. And then we'll go into these breakout rooms. Basically we typically do these as a beginner, intermediate, and expert. That's how we've done them the last few years, but I'll define these later. I've got some slides to explain it, but this is kind of how we're breaking them up this time. The other announcement I just want to make before we get started, especially in case any folks need to leave and don't catch this later on Saturday, we are holding our Atlaser assemblies. These are just opportunities to get out in the field, meet with some of your, I think coaches was a word going around, but some leaders. Again, these are staff or regional coordinators with the Atlas that are going to be at one of these 6 locations on Saturday at 10 a.m. I'll encourage you, here's the rough breakdown, but if you go to our website, maine.gov/birdatlas, and on that homepage, there's a nice orange button that says calendar of events. If you click on that, you will see them all broken down on the calendar there. And if you click on any one of those, there is a hyperlink that will go right to, right to that location. So if you're saying, I don't know where Capital Area Sports Complex, if that's even the right name for it, but click on that link and there's a pin right to the spot that you want to go. So hopefully you don't get lost. I'll encourage folks, like as Deb just asked in the chat, if there are alternative dates. We do only have these ones planned right now, but I will encourage you to get in touch with perhaps those folks. Most of the people who are leading these are fairly local to this area. between one of them, in most cases, the regional coordinator in that area, or myself or Glenn, we can probably help you help answer any questions as well with that. And I think the plan is a couple hours, kind of 10 to noon is what most folks were, I think, planning on to answer Cheryl's question of how long they are to go. We can talk about those more a little bit to keep us on schedule. I'll do our quick overview of the Atlas. Just so everyone's well aware, the Maine Bird Atlas is a project by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Started in 2018, and they brought together, and sorry, maybe I should, somewhere I have a better slide. Here's some names that we can actually look at. If folks want to maybe turn your camera on and wave or something, I don't know if that'll work with all the folks that we have in here, but Adrian Leppold, who is entertaining us with the music at the beginning, is the project director. Glenn Middlehauser, the project coordinator. I'm Doug Hitchcock, the outreach coordinator. Amy Meehan is also on, and Evan Adams just gave us a wave. There he is. I can still see him on my screen. I hope we'll get to hear from pretty much everyone tonight, especially depending on the breakout rooms you go to. But this is one of my favorite things of this project is that, you know, so many people have been brought together on this. So a huge thanks to our steering committee, scientific and technical subcommittees as well. It's a lot of effort to get this all done. And of course, our regional coordinators. I see a number of them in the room as well. So thank you all. It's really, I think, a very valuable thing to have so many people helping on this.
My apologies to Logan Parker. His name really should have been on that slide. He's been our special species survey coordinator for the entirety of the project and one of our lead seasonal field technicians. So your name should really be on there too, Logan.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'll be honest, I pulled this slide from
me
2018. So,
yeah, that was one of mine. It's not you, Doug.
Anyways, Logan, we'd be lost without you.
I'm not worried about it. Thank you guys. That's nice of you to say.
And just so we all know, the purpose of the Maine Bird Atlas is to, as officially said here, partners, professional Maine biologists and citizen scientists to document the distribution and relative abundance of all the breeding and wintering birds in the state. So glad the winter is behind us. We will have one more season of the Winter Atlas. Next winter, we will do the whole winter. So while we often say that, you know, this is the final year of the Atlas, we will have one more full winter of atlasing to go as well. Because it's April, because we're going into the breeding season, we're really just going to focus on the breeding aspect tonight and how we can kind of meet our goals for the Atlas. Real quick, the kind of overall objectives of the project is there was a Atlas done in Maine from 1978 to 83. If we can replicate that effort and then look at what's changed, that can be, that's one of the most powerful things of atlasing, is being able to get these snapshots in time to really see how our birds are changing. We really won't go into this tonight again, but we have road-based surveys that are going on, point counters. So that was the mention of figuring out the relative abundance of species. Don't worry, that's not what we're having our volunteers do. There's a focus on some priority birds, another tip of the hat to Logan. And then, you know, a huge objective is just to inspire a connection to nature. And I think the department is doing such a good job engaging volunteers all over the state. And here's how it's going. it's fun to, as I mentioned earlier, you know, when we were doing these kickoffs, this was a screenshot. Sorry, it looks a little fuzzy there, but to think just a couple years ago, with again a couple couple years of effort into the atlas, this is what our map was looking like. This is showing all of our blocks, the survey size that we're trying to cover, and you can see how much effort for hours was spent in each. And our goal is to get, especially to this almost dark black color. That means those blocks are complete. So a couple of years in, a little worrisome maybe, but we know what we're doing. So a year later, and then now, I think is tremendously impressive to see this kind of filling in, just to jump ahead again. So we're on a really good pace. We kind of hit our goals last year, and we just know that we need to be very purposeful with how we're going to spend our time this summer to make sure that that we get to the goal we want to achieve. To just show a kind of nice overview of the numbers, this is straight from our eBird Atlas portal. I'll show you a slightly updated version in a second. We know we're not going to be able to cover all the 4,000 plus blocks in the state, so we have this priority block system, and that's what you can kind of see with like these nice kind of evenly distributed or systematically distributed blocks. Like we're filling this in really nicely. Our goal last year was getting over the 60% mark, so we're in a good place. And to see that, you know, almost every priority block has at least some effort in it, so it's not like we're quite starting from scratch with these. Because we know not all of our volunteers are using eBird or using that Atlas portal, we are up to over 4,000 volunteers that have contributed to the Atlas, which is absolutely incredible. 5 million records, to think that that's, you know, this wonderful power of citizen or community science is really kind of adding up here. So this is kind of our goal for this year, and in just a minute I'll turn it over to Glenn to kind of go into how we're going to do this. But again, we're in a good spot to see, you know, just over 300 blocks left to go of our priority blocks. And then we hit a good number this winter, getting us up to 53% of topo quads completed. But again, that's all I'm going to say about winter for tonight. Just because these maps are so cool, I thought it was worth showing these. Here's our effort to date. So we still have one more year of data to go on here, but fun to see a species like black-capped chickadee. This map is showing our different levels of breeding, so possible, probable, and then the darkest level of confirmed. And really cool to see how, you know, widespread and well documented our species like black-capped chickadees are. Another fun one, this was teased in one of those early slides, but it's really cool to see this now again with 4 years of effort. Red-bellied woodpecker is a fun one because they were not even detected in Maine at all during that first atlas in the late 70s, early 80s. And now they're here with a pretty good grip, what's the right word? A stronghold of breeding in the southern coastal areas. Another absolutely wonderful conservation success story is just the number of bald eagles we have nesting in the state, and pretty incredible to just see. They're everywhere. Just to contrast that with, you know, puffins, another iconic Maine species. We're the only state that has them breeding. But when you realize like it's just a handful of islands, I do like showing this to just to show, you know, kind of how fragile they can be. And then arguably, depending on who you talk to, another great conservation success story, but maybe almost too good, where if you look at the wild turkey map from our first atlas. This was shortly after the reintroduction effort, so they were just in southern Maine and mid-coast area. Now we have breeding records in every single county, which is incredible. As a quick teaser, we showed these off last year. Another tip of the hat to Evan Adams for coming up with these maps. These will be kind of the cleaned up, essentially refined versions of those breeding evidence maps. Again, being able to look at change between the first and second atlas. And here's a little preview of what that abundance, that relative abundance sampling looks like. And why I wanted to show this is to just give the quick plug. These are the maps that are going to be going into the final atlas, like the published product that's going to come out of this. You can help us out by sponsoring a species. If you have a favorite bird out there, along with these maps and the write-up that'll be in the book, you can help support the atlas by sponsoring that species. Your name will be listed as a sponsor on that species page. And a reason it's really helpful right now, we're going to be talking a lot about some of the like blockbusting trips, the effort that we need to do to go to some of these remote areas. And so it's through things like our sponsor species program or buying Atlas merch, those things that you can do that help go into our travel grant fund. So a great way that you can support the Atlas. You know, when's Mother's Day? That's got to be coming up. Find out what your mom's favorite bird is and sponsor it for her. Get her name in the Maine Bird Atlas. That sounds like the best gift ever. The last thing I want to quickly mention before I hand it over to Glenn, we're in the final year of this project, so we kind of know, well, we know exactly what we need to do to be successful. And for tonight, we're going to be really focused on what those goals are and how to achieve them. If you are brand new to the Atlas, if this is your first Zoom call or anything, I guess I want to preface this that it might feel a little intimidating, but again, it's because we're in the final year and we really need help getting this completed. So we're going to focus pretty much entirely on what it really takes to get this done. So if you're brand new looking at this, I just wanted to show there's some great resources, especially because, again, we're in year 5. We've got a lot of stuff that we've put together. So on maine.gov/birdatlas, on the Atlas homepage, what I wanted to point you towards, if again, you are brand new to all of this, there is this Get Started tab, which is one of the best places to know at least what we're trying to collect. Then I would point you towards, there's this Resources and Materials tab. And on that page, we have a number of like how-to tutorials. So you learn pretty quickly that we use the eBird database for collecting records. We now have videos and things to teach you how to do all of that. On that same tab under Communication and Outreach, we have our recordings from the kickoff sessions from the last couple of years. And especially if you're brand new, we have these recordings of the beginner workshops. Those are wonderful places for you to check out. And then we will have more, we'll have our weekly Q&A Zoom sessions coming up, what is it, May 16th, I think? For some reason that number sticks out in my head. So you will then have a weekly opportunity to come back and ask us any questions that you have. So again, I don't want anyone brand new to this to feel overwhelmed at this point, but just know we've got a ton of resources for you out there. Another thing on this site, brand new for everyone, I bet. our spring newsletter is out. So there should, a blog just got put up today as well, so you can find it there. We'll share it in an email to everyone as well, but you can also find it right on that page. To answer your question, Diane, this is not just for expert birders, but this is, I guess I won't get ahead of myself. Glenn will kind of help set up the priorities. But I do want folks to know, sorry, again, our newsletter is out here. And I'll make a slightly funny statement where some of the best birders I know are some of the worst atlasers I know. So you don't need to be an expert birder. As long as you know some of our more common birds, but this is where I'll say, if anyone's feeling overwhelmed going into it, we have our beginner breakout session, would be definitely where you should go at 6:30 or 7:30, excuse me. Anyways, check out the Atlas, it's or the newsletter. It's absolutely wonderful. I won't ramble any longer. I will turn it over to Glenn to talk about exactly what these priorities are as we go into the final year.
Thanks, Doug. Let's see. Take a while for my, there we go. Now my computer is responding. Let me get things set up here the way I like them here in a sec. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our goals for the final year of atlasing. And I'm actually really excited about this year. Not that I'm not excited because it's going to be over soon. I'm excited for the fun adventures that await. So definitely the final year of atlasing. I actually can't wait. So one thing I'm going to be showing a bunch of maps and not showing you how to find them yet. And at the end of my talk, I promise I'll show you how to find everything, and I'll also post all the links to everything I'm talking about in the chat at the end of my talk. So I'd suggest just let's focus on the talk now, and I'll make at the end of this talk that I'm going to mention. So I'd like to start by talking about why I'm atlasing, or why it's important. And for me personally, what gets me out atlasing is that an atlas study is a way to monitor bird populations. And some of you may have seen this, that certain birds are declining across North America over the last 30 years. Are these declines, similar across Maine or not? A bird atlas, a breeding bird atlas, is a way to help figure that out for Maine. So that's definitely an important reason why I get out atlas. The other reason is I bang on a lot about this in all the kickoff talks that I give, but it's what really gets me out of bed in the morning, early in the morning, to get out atlasing or stay up late to go out owling, is I really see this as we're generating a gift of baseline data for the next generation of Maine biologists. And I see that as so important to give that next generation some tools for monitoring bird change. So that's, for me, that's really important for helping to get me out of bed, get me into remote areas that are difficult to atlas. That, that's pretty important. And the other reason is, for me, it's been extremely fun. These are some photos from atlasing trips that I took over the first 4 years of the Atlas. And I have very fond memories of each of these trips, seeing birds or other wildlife on those trips. and I'm excited to wonder what adventures await this year. I'm already starting to plan a couple more remote trips, remote atlasing trips, and totally looking forward to it. But one other thing that surprised me is I really love atlasing when compared to birding. So that my first year of atlasing, I was learning, how to atlas. Really, the goal is to slow down and watch the birds, interpret their behaviors in terms of whether or not they're breeding or not. And it took me a year to kind of figure out how to do that. But now I get a lot of enjoyment out of that kind of birding now. And so it's something that I'm, again, looking forward to, is getting out and getting to know the birds, watching them really closely and interpreting their behaviors in terms of whether or not they're breeding in the area or not. So I wanted to, if you're new to atlasing, I wanted to, in just a couple of slides, describe the very basics of how it works. And so in its simplest form, somebody goes out, looks for birds, and maybe they find a chickadee, and they report it to the main bird atlas, and that puts a dot on the map for that species as being present. Now, as Doug mentioned, we've got close to 5,000 atlasers, and they're all submitting their chickadee records as well. So you combine all of their dots on the map, and we get breeding distribution records, along with other information on the probability of them breeding at various locations. So that's the very basics of how atlasing works. And as Doug showed with the, this is actually all the dots on the map for the black-capped chickadee. I'd expect this to be, it's widespread in Maine. But if you try to look for any gaps that we might have, there's an interesting kind of backwards C here. There's not a lot of chickadee records in that section. So is that because we don't have a lot of atlasers, or are chickadees absent from that area? And as you'll see in another couple of slides, I think it's because that's the area we got to focus on this year for atlasing. So now let's talk about our goals this year. And really, it's quite simple in that our primary goal is to finish all the priority blocks in Maine, and we have 312 of them. If you don't know what a priority block is, it's basically dividing up the state into areas, into places where we want to put dots on the map. And we've identified some priority ones. We have that figured out, kind of what needs to get done by the end of this atlas. And we've got 312 priority blocks to finish this year. And that's our number one laser focus priority for the year. And we've developed 2 maps that we put on the Maine Bird Atlas website to help us with this. So the first one, you can think, we've got 312 priority blocks to finish. If we just set everyone loose and say, go at it, we'd probably, it would be hard to coordinate our efforts. We'd probably duplicate our effort a lot. We might not get all of them done. So it's important that we coordinate our efforts this year. And that's what this first map, and I'll show you how to find this map here in a little bit. But if we just focus on the map, this map shows all 312 priority blocks that we need to finish this year. And they're color coded a bit. There's a bunch of green ones. And what the color green means is that some atlaser has been in touch to say, I've got that block covered this year. I'm going to finish it up. And that's the goal with this map. Over the next month, we're hoping that you can plan your summer efforts, study this map, look at all these non-green blocks on here. So all the orange, the yellows, the blues, the reds, and plan some adventures and let us know what you think you can cover of these blocks this year. So that's the first tool that's going to help us coordinate our efforts this year. If we can do our planning early and some plans we think we can cover this year and report back over the next month and a half, we should be able to get all the blocks on this map colored green, meaning somebody is going to try to finish that block. So what I did, this map actually changes daily. I think I generated this map a couple days ago. And what I did in each region of Maine is I tallied up the number of non-green blocks. So we've got a lot of people saying they're going to help us in a bunch of blocks. So what this map shows is kind of where we need the most effort, where we still need a lot of effort this year, and trips planned. And if you remember back to the chickadee slide when I was talking about that backwards C, where we needed some data, this is kind of showing this is the area that we need some work. It's not that there are no chickadees in there, it's that it's pointing out that we need some effort. We got enough in this. So what a block busting trip is going out birding with fellow atlasers or friends to atlas together, to work together to finish up a priority block. It's that simple. And Doug and I actually have an atlasing block busting trip planned up in Island Falls in early June. So if you want to figure out what these are like, you're welcome to join us on that trip and help us block bust that weekend. Or that weekday, it was a weekday. So the other map that we've generated is this one. So again, that first one is to help us plan. This second map is to help us keep on track as the season progresses. So again, it's currently showing all 312 priority blocks that we need to atlas. But we're going to update this map once a week through the summer. And as blocks get finished, they're going to drop off this map. So this is really going to be helpful in targeted atlasing. So if you look at the color codes here, there's purple blocks that just need some more time in them to finish them up. So that's a low-hanging fruit. There's a whole bunch of purple blocks around. There's some blocks that need breeding code upgrades. We'll talk about that in some of the breakout sessions if you don't know what that means. So those are on the simpler side for finishing up. Those are the yellow blocks. They have enough effort, they just need a little more targeted atlasing. And then the red and the orange blocks. Now, again, this map is going to be updated once a week on Tuesdays. So it'll give us a snapshot of what still needs to get done as the summer progresses. And there's also, you notice that some of the blocks are outlined in dark black and others are not. And that's whether or not the atlaser has told us whether or not they need help. So we've got some technicians signing up for blocks and I know they're going to finish those blocks. They're going into remote areas and they're like, I've got this. If you've got another atlaser willing to go up there, they should hit another block because they're 100% sure they're going to finish that block. I'm working on a bunch of blocks up in this area, and I'm sure I'll get them done, but if anyone's in the area, I'd love some help. So I've coded all the blocks I'm working in as, just I've got them covered, but if you happen to be in the area, we could use some help. So this portion is going to update as well once a week as the summer progresses. So if there's a block that's falling behind, it doesn't look like it's on track for being completed, we might the coding say, yeah, we need to get some atlasers in to help on that block. So now I should show you how to find these two maps that I've talked about. And they're quite simple. Doug showed this slide. It's the main Bird Atlas homepage. Doug was showing these buttons as well. So this green button on the left of Where to Atlas, that's the one button that will get you to both maps. So you click that button and it pulls up this map. This is the map that's going to be updated once a week. And it's going to be most useful at the start of the Atlas season, which, June 1st. This will be a really helpful map to go to and check things out. So it's updated once a week, so it's not going to have the most up-to-date information, but there is a link here in the bottom right that goes to the eBird effort map, where you can find out the latest information up to an hour or two on what's been done in the block. So the other map, this is the map that we want to color green, signing up for a block saying you'll cover it. There's a link to that map here in the left. So both of those maps can be found from that hit that Where to Atlas button. You've got access to both maps. So over the next month, as we get planning, this is, the link, that's the one to focus on. Once June rolls around, our goal is that map, all the blocks in it are going to be green. So that map will be less useful. This will be the map to focus on. One other thing I want to point out on this map is if you click on a block, it'll actually tell you exactly what it needs. So it'll say it needs 4 hours of effort and 3 species upgraded in its breeding codes. So it is that specific, and that is going to be updated once a week on that map. So again, that's the first priority. We really got to get all those 312 priority blocks done. That's the laser focus for our atlasing goals this year. We have 2 other minor goals that I want to talk about. And the first one is we need some help with marsh bird surveys. So as most of you probably know, there's another project kind of running at the same time that the Atlas is running. So the Atlas, we're trying to figure out the breeding distribution of birds. And there's also a project to do point counts around the entire state to figure out the abundance of birds. Doug was showing some of these abundance maps as well. And that's based on over 10,000 point counts run by expert birders. We hire them every year to run point counts all over the state. Again, this is the last year for us to finish up that project as well. That's running at the same time the Atlas is. And we need a little help with that particularly with marsh birds. If I can get like maybe 8 of these marshes, volunteers signed up for them, that'll put our marsh techs, our techs that we hire to run point counts, that'll put them in a little better position for finishing up this year. So the time and skill required for these, it's, basically each marsh is visited 3 times between mid-May and the late June. we're focused on finding some secretive marsh birds using playback surveys. So we've got a whole protocol on how to do this. And actually Danielle gave an excellent Zoom talk on exactly this, on marsh birds and how these surveys work. So I'll put a link to that once I'm done talking here, in case you want to check that out, as well as the link to how to find this map. So definitely, high priority is, our priority blocks. Secondary priority is if you can help with the marsh bird survey, that would be a huge help. And the last thing I want to mention is this year, communication is key. Join our question and answer sessions. We're having them once a week through the summer. Email us at any time, Maine Bird Atlas. We don't want any atlaser without anything to do this summer. We've got, if you look at the distribution of blocks that we need help in, there's a lot of them that are up in the north and to the east. Does that mean if you live down in southern Maine, you've got nothing to do? No, we've got projects. There's priority blocks down in that area that we need help with, but there's also other targeted atlasing that we could use help with. Just get in touch with us. If you have done all the priority blocks that you can do, that you can reach, and you need something else to do more locally, just let us know. We have some assignments for you. And the last thing I want to mention, and I know Doug's going to talk about this as well, but it's, we're probably going to talk about it in each of the breakout sessions as well, but it's important enough where we need to repeat this. And that is, you need to get your checklist entered into eBird as soon as possible this summer. And it has to be into the Maine Bird Atlas eBird portal. So being the last year, if we're not getting the data into the Atlas portal, it's going to take us a few months to find it. And so this bit is actually pretty important this year. And again, we'll be talking more about that. Doug's going to bring it up again in a little bit, but also in the breakout sessions on what exactly this means if you're having trouble understanding that. And with that, I'll give it back to Doug to talk about more reminders. So I'll post in the chat a bunch of links to those sites that I was mentioning as well.
Seamless transition here. Exactly picking up right where Glenn left off. This is, as Glenn just said, this is very important. As Glenn just showed, we have these amazing tools, these maps that we're trying to update as quickly as possible so that we can be as efficient with our time. So getting your data to us as quickly as possible is how we're going to be successful with this. If you have no idea what Atlas portal is, I would probably encourage you to go to the first breakout session. I'll show you a slide in just a second of what topics are kind of covered in each of those breakouts before we go to it. But that would be a good place to kind of learn what this is. There is this nice new feature, and I'm sure you'll learn about this, but even for folks who aren't going to go to that one because you say eBird, you can see which portal you're in now when you're using this is just a screenshot from the iOS version, and it looks very similar on Android. Same thing on the web version, you can always tell which portal you're in by looking in that top left corner. And what we have basically decided this year for folks in past years who knew, it used to be a little complicated about which portal to use, especially this early in the season. Our simplified recommendation to you right now, starting today, April 21st, submit all your records to the Atlas portal. We can figure it out from there. If you have, checklists that don't have breeding codes on it, we're not worried about it. Switch to the portal now so that we can make sure that that any breeding records do get in there. We can figure that out. Not to sound like a broken record, again, communicate with us. Knowing how we can efficiently get this done is going to be key to get those 300 blocks done. If you have said that you are going to put the effort in to complete a certain block, we're pretty much relying on you for that. So if you decide, I use a frigate bird just to get your attention, but if you decide to take a trip to Costa Rica, instead of finishing the block you've told us, communicate that to us so we can get someone else to go to that block. On the other side, if you find a frigate bird in Maine, also communicate that to us because I want to go see it. So let us know that too. A final, one or two plugs I'll make at the end here. We are going to be competing in the Big Atlas Weekend again. I hope folks are well aware last year was the first ever Big Atlas Weekend, which was a competition between 4 states or regions, really. Maine, New York is doing an Atlas right now, Maryland, DC, and North Carolina. And we basically, over a weekend, came up with certain goals that we could compare the outcomes of the different states. And Maine won last year. We have this amazing trophy, and we want to hold on to it for one more year. So yeah, look at, seamless, beautiful slides here. 2022, we're doing this again. This will be kind of during the peak of breeding season, having a kickoff event on the evening of June 22nd. And then this will run from a Friday evening, then all weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's just a super fun event. It was really entertaining last year to get to communicate with some of the other states, especially some of the ones that were just beginning, feeling some of the same growing pains that we had. Ultimately, we won because we were the most efficient with our time, which that is my kudos to all of you, to our Atlasers. You guys know what you're doing. And that was kind of the final thing that we could see going through the data, especially, again, comparing us to these other states. New York has so many more people, more Atlasers. So we would have thought that, we balanced it for a number of people, but I'm amazed we won because of the geography of our state, but then to see it was because of our volunteers doing such a good job, being so efficient, that made me proud. I'm proud of all of you. The last slide before I show our breakout sessions, which is good because we're right on schedule here. It's 7:24. And I'll ask Adrian to speak up and add to this in a second. But we do need folks to make sure that you are officially registered as a volunteer for the Atlas. We get all of your records by using eBird. But it's important that you are signed up as a volunteer and also recording your time. And with that, I'll let Adrian explain this a bit more. And I'm so happy to see she pulled out the trophy. This is
Keep the
this is what
Canary
it's all
Cup in
about.
Maine this year. Whoops, wrong side. We want that to say Maine 2022 this year. Keep it home. We'll have emails with reminders of those kickoff events and the actual dates of this is highly coveted. The other states are quite impressed that this is what we arrived at for a trophy. So, and I will, so I will finish up here where Doug left off. I just wanted to let everybody know, if you have not already signed up as an official volunteer, just contributing data to the project does not count as being an official volunteer through the state. We want you to go to this site. I'll have somebody post the link in the chat and you can sign up. In addition, because eBird only tracks your effort when you're actively surveying, but you are so much more valuable than just that to this project, we've created this additional site where you can enter your effort. And I just wanted to inform everyone. So for those of you that don't know how the funding for this project works, it is 100% federally funded. Those dollars, however, it's through our state agency, but those dollars come with a catch. We have to provide 25% of that total amount in match funds. They're not just giving us these millions of dollars. The interesting thing is that based on how the federal fiscal cycle works, we just started a new federal fiscal year this past October. So basically we have this one final year of work for the Atlas with volunteers to fund the next 4 years. I have a budget, so long after all of the data has been collected, it's going to take us a couple years to do quality checks, organize it all, analyze it all, and then put it into publishable form. And so we really will benefit from as much time and effort that you all track for us this year to help us fund the next 4 years. And your work on this project extends beyond just the Atlas. This Atlas and all of your time has generated so much money in match dollars. We've been able to support other projects through IF&W, through Maine Fish and Wildlife. So there are, for example, surveys statewide going on for salt marsh obligate species. Your time, once we meet the Atlas needs, will help fund that. We've helped fund work for reptiles and amphibians in the state. So your time and miles contributed to this project extend so much farther beyond that. So again, getting the bird data is our number 1 priority. Number 2, please try to enter all effort, including survey time, into this portal. At a minimum, sign up as a project volunteer.